Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TMRP, the MetrObelisk Radio Podcast. We've got a fun show for you this week covering topics such as the Nick Fury Disney Plus series, along with movie theaters rescheduling operating hours, and big movies getting delayed yet again. Now, before I ramble on for too long, let's get into our first main topic of the episode. And this is one where we're going to not spend as much time on because it's not as big of news. But the Russo brothers' new movie has been bought up by Apple. The movie is set to star Tom Holland, obviously of Spider-Man fame. And what was the movie called again? The movie was called Cherry. Yeah, it's Cherry. The movie is based on a novel written by first-time writer Nico Walker about a former Army medic who returns from Iraq with undiagnosed PTSD, falls into an opioid addiction, and basically starts to rob banks. And before you ask, yes, this is not a fictional story. This is a biopic, and it is being directed by the Russo brothers, unlike what 21 Bridges was, where that was more of just them producing it and not really directing it. Basically, hey, here's a bunch of money to put our name on this, go. This movie does have an early 2021 release date for Apple TV Plus, and this movie has middle market written all over it. And I've been saying this for quite a while, and I don't remember who the first person to say this was, but someone made a video on YouTube probably about, 5-6 years ago, where they were talking about like the 10 things that the Hollywood studios are going to come to regret. And one of those reasons was allowing that middle market to die. Movies like Cherry, 21 Bridges, that new one that Apple just bought up, Greyhound with Tom Hanks is on there now. The one with Chris Hemsworth, that's Extraction over on Netflix. Those would be theatrical releases about 15, 20 years ago, released in like October, November, December type area, as a break from all these, big budget movies. Well, now Hollywood just wants to focus on all these, $1 to $200 million movies, which we will get to later in this episode, but I don't want to get too far ahead. Now, I did state before that 21 Bridges, that movie did go directly to theaters, if you remember, and that movie was made on a budget of about $33 million and only grossed $49,939,757 during its theatrical run. So, in my opinion, the Russo brothers agreeing to let their movie get bought up by Apple Plus, allowing their movie to get bought up by Apple just made a whole lot of sense from a financial standpoint, since 21 Bridges technically was a bomb. And personally, I've never seen 21 Bridges, but from what I heard, I heard it's just kind of a meh movie. It's there. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So with Cherry, we're just gonna have to wait to see. So now, let's segue from the Russo brothers over to Samuel L. Jackson, and apparently he is returning as Nick Fury in a Disney Plus series. Now, to be fair, nothing has been confirmed yet, and I'm only bringing this up because this was reported by Variety a few days ago. Sam Jackson and his representatives have not made a comment regarding this yet, and I'm only really talking about this because Variety is talking about it, Variety being one of the top trade publications for the film industry. But like I said, nothing is confirmed as of my reporting on this. Now, this show is still quote-unquote in development, which, what was the last Friday movie? I think it was called Last Friday, starring Ice Cube. It was going to be Friday 4. Has been quote-unquote in development for the past 15 years. And this series is going to mark the 9th MCU series being made. Now, the other MCU shows that are coming are WandaVision, that has a December 2020 release date on Disney+. Falcon and Winter Soldier has been delayed to 2021, and from what I heard, it got delayed because it actually follows off of a plot point that's going to be in the Black Widow movie. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Loki still has an early 2021 release date. Now, I think that show can work independently because Loki was already set to be in an alternate timeline. If you remember in Avengers Endgame, when he successfully grabs the Tesseract and goes back to Asgard, that's right where the Loki series is going to pick up from what I've read. I could be wrong. Marvel's What If Season 1 has a 2021 release date, and the other 4 shows that would be Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk right now are all scheduled for 2022 release dates. Now, in my opinion, Kevin Feige shouldn't be combining the continuity of the movies with these Disney Plus shows. And a perfect example of that is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you remember that ABC series that started back in 2013 that followed Agent Phil Coulson from the movies. Now, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that show would constantly reference what was going on in the movies, but the movies rarely referenced the show. The one time it referenced the show was Avengers Age of Ultron. That very opening scene was actually a continuation of like a 3 or 4 episode story arc about finding Hydra in those snowy tundra mountains. Anyway, it went over like a lead balloon, and no other movie has really followed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since, to my knowledge. I've personally only seen a couple of episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here and there. It's not really my cup of tea. Now, the Netflix shows, mind you, I think were supposed to combine with the movies, at least Daredevil was, but there was like a civil war between Kevin Feige and Ike Perlmutter at the time. So the Netflix shows were all building up to the Defenders. That was Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. So all the Marvel heroes that were all centralized in Hell's Kitchen. And if we're going to go a step further, and let's talk about Disney Plus here, I think that Disney Plus simply just launched way too early because they did not have enough content when they launched. And keep in mind, guys, they launched back in November of 2019, so almost a year. And we only have The Mandalorian, and Season 2 is coming on October 30th. High School Musical, the series that nobody talks about. And then we have Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7. And I do know that The Bad Batch was confirmed to be an animated show in their 2021 slot. But seriously, what else does Disney Plus have? We were supposed to get Falcon and Winter Soldier, this fall, but then it got delayed. WandaVision is still coming out on time, but still, I would think okay, launch with The Mandalorian and then have a Marvel show ready to go right out of the gate. You need to have people justify paying that subscription to your service. If there's nothing else on and all you have is a bunch of back catalog titles, okay, you have all the Disney Channel shows that I grew up on, but as I'm going back and rewatching those, like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Sweet Life on Deck, that Hannah Montana bullshit, you realize that those shows really haven't aged well. So what else is really left for me to really watch at this point? Other than gotta sit here and wait and hope and pray to God that they work. Now, in my opinion, with regards to this Nick Fury series, this is really just a ploy to get investors to cough up more money. Because if we actually look at the Walt Disney Company itself, they're not doing too good right now. The Disney Parks division, I read, actually had to lay off another 28,000 employees because California simply just refuses to reopen because of the whole, COVID and the whole type bullshit. So, what does Disney really have at this point other than Disney Plus? And before I ramble on for too long, because I do want to come back to this topic a little later on, let's get into our next main topic, and that is going to be that Tenet, at this point, I would consider a box office bomb. It only makes, $41 million domestically, but it nears $300 million globally. A $300 million movie's not bad. Well, that's if you ignore the fact that this movie had a budget of $200 million. And this movie came out here in the States on September 3rd. Now, that was a Thursday, and the movie is entering its 5th weekend in the theaters as of the recording of this. And that's right now, Tenet is making an average of about $8 million per weekend in theaters, at least here in the United States. I'm not going to look at the average for worldwide. Let's see, that would be 300 million divided by 5. I think that's about $40 million a weekend worldwide, if my math serves me correctly. Feel free to call me an idiot, if I am, because, oh my God, he can't do 3rd grade math in his head. Now, analysts are saying that the low box office is a result of California and New York simply refusing to let the theaters reopen, and how Middle America just cannot carry a tentpole film. Now, how I'm seeing this with Tenet is this to me marks the death of the $100 to $200 million blockbuster, in my opinion. You know, if these studios are going to make these movies like Tenet, insert MCU movie here, Dunkirk, another fucking Christopher Nolan movie. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Those movies have to make, you know, near $1 billion in the theaters just to break even. And I hate to break it to you, but not every movie is going to be $1 billion movie. You know, 15, you know, I would actually say about 15 years ago, if you were having the intention of, well, this movie's going to make $1 billion in the theaters, most people would laugh you out of the room going, dude, what the fuck are you thinking? Relying on those odds. But nowadays, that's more and more the norm. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I had no intention of ever seeing Tenet. And it doesn't surprise me with the $41 million domestically. Because honestly, think about that trailer that you probably saw on YouTube at one point. You know, what did the trailer really convey about Tenet? Other than, you know, hey, cool action scenes with John David Washington, and oh look, this SUV made a car crash, and then he automatically goes in reverse, and he drives backwards. Ooh, sign me up on that one. And if you'll excuse me for a moment, I think I have the IMDb page pulled up for this. Yes, I do. Sorry if you hear mouse clicks, but I'm not going to edit them out because I'm too lazy to do so. So I'm reading the IMDb page, and basically the description on here. I'm going to read this word for word, and ask yourself this: does this movie sound any enticing to you? You know, okay. The description, quote, armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Again, let me ask the question. What about that description says anything remotely interesting about the movie? And I would say this. Now again, I'm going to stress, I haven't seen the movie. This is not a review of Tenet. But if you're going to pull an M. Night Shyamalan ding dong and do this, you know, twist ending at the end of Sixth Sense, ooh, you got to wait for the twist ending because the twist ending holds the entire movie together, then you don't have much of a movie to begin with. Ask people, was watching The Sixth Sense on your second viewing as rewarding as the first time? The vast majority might answer no. And like I said, that's not much of a movie if you're just relying on those, you know, big twists and turns. And personally, I got really, really burned by Dunkirk back in 2017. I actually went to see that in theaters on opening day. I do remember. And I remember seeing these trailers. It looks like it's going to be this huge war epic. You know, we're going to finally have a movie about Britain's D-Day with the Battle of Dunkirk. And then you watch the movie and you're like, wait a minute, what exactly was the Battle of Dunkirk? Now, I know what the Battle of Dunkirk is because I'm a World War II history buff, but, you know, average person listening to this is going to think, you know, what the hell was the Battle of Dunkirk? Because that's not talked about in U.S. history classes, and mostly world history, it gets ignored, unless if you live in Britain. Like I said, it was Britain's D-Day during World War II. And, you know, that movie was billed as this huge war epic. You know, it was going to be this big 3-hour movie, and then it was, you know, the only reason I didn't fall asleep during that movie, honestly, is because it was so fucking loud that unless if you were deaf, you were not falling asleep in theaters. But anyway, I've gone on and on about Christopher Nolan and Tenet far too much, so let's, you know, take a very nice little segue into this next bit of news, and that is Black Widow and Wonder Woman got delayed yet again. And as a result, theaters are reducing their hours. Now, Wonder Woman 1984 has been delayed to December 25th of this year, just days after Tenet opened. So the Tenet opening in theaters didn't exactly work out for Warner Brothers. Now, if you remember, Wonder Woman 1984 was originally going to come out in August. Then it was moved to the beginning of October. And I actually get a very strong feeling that it's going to be delayed again into 2021. Sorry about that, guys. I've been going on for quite a while. Yeah, but I get a feeling that, Wonder Woman 1984 is going to get delayed again. Now, Black Widow has been delayed to May of 2021, along with the entire MCU slate. I think Eternals also got pushed back to like November of 2021. Now, if you remember with Black Widow, it was originally supposed to come out in April of this year, 2020. And 2020, now this year marks the first year since 2009 to not have an MCU movie released theatrically. Because if you remember, Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk were both released in 2008. There was nothing for 2009. And Iron Man 2, the third movie in the MCU, didn't release until summer of 2010. And the next big movies to get released theatrically at this point are No Time to Die. That's the 25th James Bond movie, which big whoop-de-fucking-do. I've got no excitement for that movie, despite being a lifelong James Bond fan. And that was originally going to release back in April as well. And Pixar's Soul are both set to release on November 20th of this year. But again, that date could change as well. We're just going to have to wait and see. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me. And now, like I just stated, movie theaters are reducing hours. Everyone from AMC to Regal to Cinemark, and even the smaller chains. Cinemark and Marcus Theaters are actually going a step further and are closing some locations on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Now, keep in mind, this is not every theater that they're shutting down. They did say that 75% of them are going to remain business as usual. They're just doing this in their smaller markets. Now, Cinemark said in a statement, I found this on the Hollywood Reporter, but Cinemark said in a statement, quote, Cinemark's reopening plan was thoughtfully and strategically designed with multiple contingencies in place to ensure we are able to be nimble and react as needed to the ever-changing environment. That said, we will evaluate opportunities to align with demand, including reducing operating hours while we await new studio content to encourage theatrical moviegoing. Now, keep in mind, theaters at this point have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on these, COVID safety measures, everyone wear a mask, those removable seat covers, the disposable ones. Well, those can't be cheap for them in the long run. So, how are theaters making their money? All of a sudden, this, large popcorn that originally cost you $7 is now costing you $30 because, well, now you got to pay for the seat cover, kids. Now, to be fair, theaters were hoping that Mulan would follow Tenet to the box office, but obviously Mulan was put on Disney Plus under their premiere video, and I want to tie this back into Black Widow. Why was Black Widow delayed all the way to May 2021? Because if you're reading about Mulan and how much it brought in, some people are claiming it did over $250 million in revenue on Disney Plus. And then you have some on the lower end going, well, it may have only done about 30 to 35 mil, depending on what you're reading. So what this signals to me is Mulan did not do very well on PVOD. Because had it done well, Black Widow would be going straight to premiere video on demand if Mulan was this smash hit. But it clearly wasn't. And like I said, this all has to do with Tenet not performing well, and this ties back to the death of that $100 to $200 million blockbuster. I think that this is going to be the way forward for a while. I don't think you're going to see a $1 billion box office movie for quite some time because economically it's just not in the cards. If every movie you make has to make $1 billion, then that's a you problem, not an audience problem. Plus, who knows if the MCU is even now going to survive all this? The last piece of MCU content that we got was Avengers Endgame back in the summer of 2019. So now we have to wait till December, and that's a Disney Plus show, mind you. And not everybody has Disney Plus. And the first theatrical movie is delayed, by a year, and it's a retroactive addition to that Infinity Saga. In my opinion, the Black Widow movie should have been made like 2015, 2016 at the extreme latest. I'm not saying that Black Widow was going to lose a shit ton of money in a normal movie going season. I still think it makes some money. I just don't think it makes as much money as Disney and Marvel were expecting. And, before I go on and on for too long, I think I should conclude the show because I have now been going on for about almost 20 minutes, and that's about as long as I wanted to go for this, for this first episode, just to see how I handle things. So, I'm going to end this off, and, I'm going to end this off on where you can follow me. You can follow the blog, MetrObeliskRadio.blogspot.com. I do treat that more like social media than social media itself because, at least when you go to the blog, you can see every post. Whereas if I post on Facebook, you have to basically pray to the gods that, you're going to see it. I'm also on Twitter at MetrObelisk. That is a capital M, lowercase ETR, capital O, lowercase BELISK. No spaces in between any of those. And as long as you're here, subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the BitChute channel. I am planning on doing BitChute exclusives at some point this year. Now, I know that subscribing to a YouTube channel can be a real pain in the ass at times with logging to an existing account or creating a new one. I don't really subscribe to YouTube channels much anymore. But it's a small click for you. But for a really, really small channel like mine, I'm not even a piss in the bucket. So for a really, really small channel like mine, it actually does mean a lot. It actually does help me grow. It helps, get my content pushed out further. So anyways, guys, I'm going to end it right here. Thank you for listening to the very first episode of TMRP, the MetrObelisk Radio Podcast, and I will see you guys next week.